The movie begins with a woman named Shabnam who is married to a very rich man. She is an example for others and people always talk about her and her beauty. But there's a big explanation behind her great beauty. Shabnam attends the funeral of his neighbor Ruqayya and then returns to her luxurious home and asks housekeeper Rova to go to the supermarket to buy groceries. It becomes clear that she deliberately sent her out of the house in order to create a mess in the house. Afterwards, Shabnam goes to a restaurant with her best friend Didam, where a group of women are waiting for her and discussing her beauty and how she always maintains her weight. All the ladies are members of the same association, and that is why they know each other so well. After meeting the ladies, Shabnam goes to pick up her son from school, and it is revealed that she is very close to him and is used to asking him about details of day in school. Arriving home, they find that the house is flooded due to leaking water. Shabnam's husband, Onur, returns from work and decides to take the little ones and go to his mother, assuring his wife that he will take care of everything, and then calls a cleaning company to clean the house. Shabnam asks the workers to clean up well and goes to visit her mother-in-law at night. Asal knows what she's really like. Because of this, the two hate each other and talk about it very openly when they are alone, but in public they pretend to love each other. The next day, Shabnam invites Onur to buy Mrs. Ruqayya's house, which was put up for sale after her death. It turns out that over the course of many days, she did everything to convince her husband that their home had a lot of problems, so it was better to look for a second home. She chooses Ruqayya's house, which is the largest house in the area. After much discussion, Onur agrees, and they soon move to a new house. Shabnam comes into her daughter's room to find out how she is doing. To support her, she always praises her and says that she is a beautiful and enterprising girl. One day, Shabnam goes to a restaurant to meet her friend Degem. She informs her that she has decided to run for the president of the association, but it turns out that she is afraid of the position, especially since the press will talk about her all the time. Degem supports her friend, saying that it is not that difficult and she can handle it. In a few days, Shabnam will have a press interview and they will go home with her to shoot. Shabnam starts talking about her past and says that when she was a little she was happy and that her mother loved her very much, but we know that Shabnam is lying and that her mother was so bad that she locked her daughter in her room when people came to her guests. She also says that she went to a famous private educational center, but the truth is that Shabnam was from a poor family and her father raised her to work with him in his shop, which specialized in selling car tires. He paid her a very small salary. One day, when she was getting ready for educational center, on the way she passed by a workshop where she met a young man whom she liked. While she was talking to him, Niazi, the owner of the workshop, came and took her money. He made fun of her appearance and smell, but Shabnam was so used to it that it no longer bothered her. She went to a private school which she got into thanks to a scholarship. There for the first time she meets her best friend Elif. We learn that Shabnam is very good at mathematics, and by participating in a competition, she won a trip to Switzerland. Elif suggests they celebrate and go to her house after school, and Shabnam ends up at her house for the first time in her life. Elif's mother, Katie, joyfully greets the girl. During the conversation, Shabnam says that when she grows up, she will have a house like hers and she will work hard to buy it. Katie smiles at her words and says that work is hard. Her family is one of the most prestigious families in the country, and most of their family works in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She tells Shabnam that no matter how hard she works, she will never reach this level and that people like her live and die in the same social class. Shabnam is used to such hateful looks from people like her, and she tries to defend herself, but Katie doesn't give her a chance, and she tells that it was their company that gave her scholarship, and they know very well that students who get scholarships when they graduate their school will work for them. At the end of their conversation, Katie threatened that if she caused Elif any harm, she would destroy her. The next day, Shabnam went to inquire about the details of the trip to Switzerland and learned that the scholarship would cover airfare and accommodation, but she needed to get a passport, and as we know, she does not have money and cannot ask her parents for it. Therefore, she understands that the opportunity has been missed and learns from Elif that her mother took advantage of her friends and received a grant so that Elif could also go to Switzerland. She is happy that they will be traveling together, but she feels that she has been treated unfairly, so she decides to leave, leaving her devastated, and decides to quit educational center from that day on. That night, Shabnam meets a guy she likes and tells her that academic success will never fulfill her dreams. So she has to come up with another plan. The first thing she thinks about is that she needs to look good to get where she wants to go. It turns out that her mother's bullying makes her feel ugly, and she believes that this is precisely the reason that prevents her from realizing her dreams. Shabnam focused on working with her father, and one day they were visited by a very rich man named Saladin, whose son studied in the same educational center as Shabnam. The man invites her to work at his home as a cleaner, and she agrees. An officer named Masood from the branch then asks about Saladin and says that he is a bad person, but Shabnam's father denies knowing him. Girl's father allows his daughter to work, but gets angry and says that she is still a teenager and has the right to enjoy her age. After all, he gives her money to go to the cinema and hang out, and for the first time she feels that someone needs her. After this, Shabnam begins working as a cleaner until one day she receives a call from Saladin's personal assistant, and upon arriving at his house, she discovers a corpse on the floor, after which she is asked to clean everything here and erase all evidence. Even though she is scared to sleep, she agrees and tries to use the situation to her advantage. She started asking for 10 times more money than she would have charged for regular cleaning, and they had to agree. After each job, she gains experience and learns to erase all evidence so that no one can find the eliminator. Shabnam saves all this money to get the cosmetic surgery she dreams of and finally manages to achieve the amount she wants. On the way to the hospital, she is met by Niazi, who, as usual, begins to search her to take the money she has with her and intends to steal it. In a desperate situation, she pulls a knife from his pocket and stabs him in the leg, then leaves him in agony and runs off to get to the hospital and have surgery. Soon she undergoes many operations, and after some time we see that her appearance has completely changed. Sometime later, while on a plane, she sees Onur and realizes that he is very rich, so she decides to travel with the same airline every time. One day it turns out that they meet, and even her place is next to him. Shabnam, not wanting to miss the chance, tries to attract Onur's attention. It turned out that she is a very smart woman, as she can easily win his heart. One day, Onur takes her with him to introduce her to his mother Ezel, who at first feels uncomfortable with her. In private, Ezel says that she knows everything about her but cannot tell his son the truth. After all, he can become attached to a girl and insist on marriage, as happens in TV series, and hate his mother for trying to separate them. Ezel, on the contrary, decides to hide from Onur and erase all evidence of Shabnam's past. A few days later, she is shocked by a visit from Shabnam and Onur, who announce that they got married and decided to surprise her. Ezel understands that Shabnam is daring and smart, so she pretends to be happy for the well-being of her son. In the present, we see Shabnam after her life has changed 180 degrees, and she is still with the journalist, lying and giving him false information about her life. The article is published and Shabnam is very proud of it. Meanwhile, Niazi is released from prison and accidentally comes across the article. Although Shabnam's appearance has changed and she has changed her name, he recognizes her from her photograph. The rose vase, made from tools in the workshop, has a very distinctive shape, and we learn that the young man Shabnam was in love with the one who made this vase for her. Therefore, Niazi easily recognizes the vase and decides to take revenge on Shabnam for injuring his leg. Shabnam goes to pick up her son from school, and when she meets Niazi, tries to explain everything, but the man sticks a knife in her leg in the same place. Shabnam promises to give him a lot of money so that he will forgive her for what happened in the past. She understands that he can ruin everything, and then her whole past will become known. With difficulty, she reaches home and asks Roa to treat the wound, because she used to be a nurse. Rhoda says that the wound is deep and advises her to go to the hospital, but Shabnam refuses and does not tell anyone. A few days later, Shabnam sells her diamond ring to give Niazi money and then meets Onur, who has returned from his trip. Shabnam prepared everything for their anniversary party. When it's time for the party, Shabnam realizes that a group of kids are mocking her daughter, so she starts talking to her, thinking she's beautiful and their opinions are meaningless, and teaching her that she must learn to fight back and defend herself. The party begins, and as usual, Shabnam and her mother-in-law act as if they behave nice to each other. In the middle of the party, Shabnam realizes that the time to meet Niazi is getting close, so she leaves and gets to a warehouse in the old area, where Niazi is waiting for her, who takes a bag of money and mocks Shabnam, saying that he still thinks she is a monster, and that her husband and his family will find out the truth about her. Shabnam was so angry at his words that she grabbed a metal rod and stuck it. Then she took it with her and left it in the trunk of a car parked in the garage. In the garage, she changes into a dress because there is red liquid on it, then returns to the party and tries to control herself. When asked why she changed her dress, she replies that it was too tight. At this time, the waitress goes to the parking lot to get drinks in the garage and steps on a liquid stain from the car. Shabnam realizes that now the liquid will end up on the carpet and is afraid that someone might see it, so she throws her drink on the carpet to hide the red color, and in the middle of the night, taking advantage of the fact that everyone is sleeping, she takes Niazi's from the trunk and decides to bury him in the garden. While she is burying him, little Abanaz wakes up and sees that she is in the garden. But he stands far away and does not see the body, and Shabnam, making sure that everything remains in its place, takes the child to bed. She returns to burying the body and thinks about everything she learned from Saladin's men to cover up her crime. After 10 days, the police receive a statement about the disappearance of Niazi, and the case is assigned to a policeman named Almaz, who is a friend of Masood. It turns out that Niazi worked with Saladin for a long time and helped him hide all his bad deeds. But when they were caught, Niazi decided to go to prison instead of Saladin, hoping that he would pay him compensation, but Saladin abandoned him. As a result, from the moment he was released from prison, Niazi was thinking about revenge, and after his release he went to Istanbul and has since disappeared. Masood realizes that the case is too complicated for him and decides to find out who eliminated him and reads the evidence. Soon they reach Niazi's car, parked near the bad scene, and find a magazine next to it. Masood is surprised that such a poor man is interested in this news and decides to meet Shabnam. Shabnam, seeing Masood, remembered him, but Masood does not recognize her and says that he wants to talk to her about something important. She needs to pick up her son from school, and Masood decides to wait for her. After a few hours, Shabnam returns home and Masood tries to talk to her to find out more about her. But Shabnam avoids talking about herself and starts talking about her husband, and she seems very nervous. Masood begins to tell her about Niazi, whom they are trying to find, and Shabnam pretends to sympathize with the man and hopes that the police will find him as soon as possible. But then Onur appears and asks Masood about their connection with Niazi's disappearance. Masood says he has something to do with it, but can't say anything more. Afterwards, Masood meets his friend Almaz and says that he talked to Shabnam and realized that she is very smart and knows how to control her emotions well. But it is strange that she is pretending to be stupid. At night, Shabnam gets very nervous and the children go to bed so she can sit alone. She gets drunk and then goes to the place where the body is buried. She reassures herself that she did not leave any evidence and says that she does not intend to lose either Onur or the children because she fought so hard to get to this point of her life, and remembers how she tried to make Onur fall in love with her. She lied to him and tried to act like they had similar tastes in many things to get his attention. On the other hand, Masood goes to visit his mother, and there he meets one of his friends who is close to Shabnam's family and learns from her that Shabnam is a genius in mathematics. She easily calculates all the numbers in her head, and Masood feels that she is hiding something, so he wants to find at least some excuse. Shabnam receives a message from Masood. It turns out that he has lost his glasses and will be at their house soon. When Masood comes to her house, she says that she has to leave because the assembly elections are coming soon, and she has to be there. Masood will not be able to object and asks give his glasses back if she finds them. The next day, Onur is preparing for a business trip to New York. Shabnam was supposed to go with him as agreed, but at the last moment she apologized, saying that she forgot about the date because she was busy with her own problems. On the other hand, Masood decides to visit the person who filed the missing report about Niazi. His name is, and he says they were friends, and after leaving prison, he told him he was going to Istanbul and then disappeared along the way. He read that Shabnam said in an interview that she studied at a private school in Beirut. He goes there and asks for her personal file. Abloa, a senior teacher at the school, says that she dropped out of school. Masood shows her a recent photograph, but the teacher says that this is not the Shabnam she knows, so Masood decides to meet with Cade, who heads an organization that provides scholarships to students. She doesn't even recognize Shabnam and gets furious when he says that Shabnam went to school on a scholarship and states that girls who get scholarships never amount to anything in the end and live and die in poverty. Masood is unlucky that her thinking is so superficial, and he tells her that she and people like her are just a disease that society suffers from and leaves. As for Shabnam, she adores the women of the association, and it turns out that someone named Seema is running against her for the same position and is trying to win people over to her side, but Shabnam is determined to get the position. The next day, Onur returns from his trip, and, as usual, Shabnam meets him and feels that he has changed. When she realized that he had taken off his wedding ring, Onur made the excuse that his hands were swollen due to the pressure on the plane. But it actually fell when he cheated on his wife while traveling, and it seems Shabnam started to get suspicious of him, so she searched his phone but found nothing. On election day, Shabnam is elected president of the association, and we learn that the association provides scholarships for girls and that Shabnam also wants to provide employment opportunities. She asked each lady to talk to her husband and find out how many jobs they could provide. The women seem surprised by her words because they are not used to such actions, but they have to agree since Shabnam is now the head of the organization. One day, Shabnam came to a friend's restaurant. Masood follows her and takes the key from the valet to check her car. While he searches the car, he discovers that the car was going to the same area where Niazi's car was found, leading him to believe that it has something to do with his disappearance. He decided to leave his glasses in the car so that she would understand that he had spotted her. When Shabnam saw them, she began to be afraid of him. When she returns home, she is attacked by Rafik, who tells his friend Niazi that he filed a missing person report and was keeping an eye on Masood. Therefore, he is sure that she is somehow connected with Niazi's disappearance. She asks Rafik about his relationship with Niazi, and he replies that they are friends, but Shabnam understands from his words that he is lying because he does not know that Niazi has a leg disability, which means he has never met him, and acts like he knows him. Shabnam gives him his phone number and says that he will contact him if he finds out anything. On the other hand, Masood comes to the place where they found Niazi's car, and then he realizes that a relative has also come to Shabnam. This is an old area, and there he meets a shop owner who tells that cases happen here from time to time, and that about 4 weeks ago, there were no signs of violence or broken things, but they couldn't figure out who did it because there were no cameras in the area. And Masood did not realize that Shabnam had arrived at the same time, so the forensic team went in search of evidence. After a long search, they find nothing, not even evidence that Niazi is here. Shabnam decides to deal with Masood in the same way and sends him a photo of the glasses on the pretext that she found them and wants to return them to him. The next day, the girl with whom Onur cheated on Shabnam arrives, and we learn that her name is Melissa and that she is settled in Istanbul to be close to Onur. The first thing she does is visit Asalia at home, and we learn that Melissa and Onur were childhood friends and Melissa had feelings for him and thought it was mutually until Shabnam came into his life and they got married. Melissa was devastated and could not forget him for many years until she met a man and married him, but after a while she got divorced because she could not stop thinking about Onur. Ezel decided to use all this to her advantage and told her that Onur was going to New York so that she could meet him, and by pretending it was a coincidence, Melissa got close to him in order to get him to divorce Shabnam and marry her. Shabnam, meanwhile, understands that Onur is changing, but he says that he has problems at work. Niazi's problem solved, she smiles at Tuvin, the family's driver, and asks if he will go to the old area to pick up orders for her. He apologizes to Shabnam and says he can't. Soon after this, Masood arrived and said that he had been to her old school. Masood wonders why she deleted all her personal data from the school as if she was never there. Whatever it is, Masood is sure that he will soon find out the truth about her, and while they are talking, Shabnam feels very tired and leaves. Melissa calls Onur and says that she went to Istanbul and asks him to meet her. They decide to have lunch together, and it turns out that Onur is devastated by what has happened, regrets spending time with her, and wants to stay away from Melissa. Meanwhile, it turns out that they are being watched by a journalist filming them together, and we learn that his name is Aiden. Hayden goes to the Didan restaurant, where he senses that he has new news. Didan is afraid that the news will concern her or Shabnam, so she insists on finding out about him first. Meanwhile, Shabnam goes to meet Rafik as she promised him, and Rafik is afraid of Saladin. It turns out that Saladin ordered him to eliminate Niazi, but Shabnam beat him to it. Shabnam decides to help Rafik and asks him to go to the police and say that he saw Niazi in their area so that they can stop the investigation. And then go to Saladin and report that it was he who eliminated Niazi, but Rafik is afraid. Thinking that Niazi is still alive, Shabnam convinces him that Niazi is dead, and Rafik, taking advantage of her confidence, agrees with her. Didem starts a conversation with Aiden, who says that this time he has big news that will change the world, and he agrees to tell her this news first on the condition that he spend a whole year without paying for a party at her restaurant, and when she agrees, he shows her a photo of Owner with Melissa, which shocks Didem. She gets scared and tries to contact Shabnam to inform her, but she is sleeping at that time. In the past, we know that Isel was upset when Owner and Shabnam suddenly got married, so she talks to Shabnam and says that while she was spinning around trying to erase her past, she realized that her parents were still alive, and it turned out that Isel had prepared marriage contract for Shabnam to sign. She threatens that if Owner divorces Shabnam, she will not have any rights and threatens to contact her parents and inform them about this. Meanwhile, Rafik comes to the police to report everything. Alma's decided to close the case, but Masood feels that something is wrong. Asel visits Melissa in her new home and begins to give her advice on how to get closer to Onur, telling her about the colors of curtains he likes and many other details, and also gives the example of Shabnam and says that she is not easy to get along with and she will not remain silent. If she finds out that her husband is having an affair with someone else, she will not remain silent. Meanwhile, Shabnam arrives at the restaurant where she finds out that Masood is waiting for her. He reports that Niazi has been found. Shabnam, knowing the truth, pretends to be happy and hopes that they will never meet again. Afterwards, she meets Didem, who takes her to a restaurant and tells her everything she has learned. When she realizes that her husband is cheating on her, and at this time Melissa arrives at the restaurant, deciding to come here specifically to see Shabnam, and she is interested to know what kind of person she is. Meanwhile, Shabnam comes out of the basement, sees Melissa, and is about to quarrel with her, but Didem takes her aside to talk to her and advises her to calm down because the association members are here, and if they find out, then the rumor about it will spread everywhere. Aiden wants to post the photo on his page, but Didem won't let him. Shabnam immediately wants to meet with Owner and sort things out, but at the last moment her daughter enters. The next day, Melissa meets with her friends and tells them that she is now engaged to someone, but cannot tell who it is until they tell her. Shabnam, on the other hand, sits with Didem to come up with a solution. Didem advises her not to pay attention to Owner's betrayal and try to get closer to him so that Melissa does not have a chance to take him away. She keeps Owner busy with a variety of family affairs, from inappropriate parties to celebrating her children's birthdays, school holidays, and so on every 6 months. Owner is so busy with them that he doesn't even have time to answer Melissa's calls. A few days later, Shabnam goes to meet Didem. Shabnam says that these are all temporary solutions and that they need to find a radical solution to the problem, and they are interested to know how Owner and Melissa date each other. Shabnam is afraid of what happened in New York and thinks that Isel planned everything because she was very happy when she realized that Shabnam was not going with him. Meanwhile, Melissa was annoyed that Owner was not answering her calls and decided to confirm her suspicions, so she calls Isel. But she thinks Shabnam has found out about this and keeps trying to distract him. Shabnam goes to meet Didem, who advises her to take her husband and leave for one day, but she does not want to leave the children and decides to organize a trip for everyone together. On the other hand, we see Masood becoming increasingly suspicious of Shabnam. He searches a warehouse in the old quarter and asks the team to be more thorough. They find a sample that proves that Niazi was in this place. Masood realizes that his suspicions are correct and asks for the case to be reopened. The next morning, Shabnam woke up to a call from Masood, who said that he is standing on the street, and she went to talk to him. Masood says that the case is on again and that he will not shut up until he knows the truth. She convinces him that it doesn't matter to her, after which Masood interrogates Rafik and tries to lure him into a trap. He says that Niazi is standing outside, but Rafik is sure that he is lying because Shabnam confirmed that he is dead. Rafik confesses the truth, and as soon as Rafik hears the name Saladin, He becomes so scared that he decides to lie and say that he eliminated Niazi because he realizes that the officer knows the truth and is afraid that Saladin will also find out the truth and eliminate him. Rafik starts acting out the crime and says that he threw the body in the water, while Shabnam is still planning to travel, and we know that Shabnam's daughter adores drawing. Shabnam applied to a talent school in another city and was accepted for a 2-week course, so she decided to book a vacation for the whole family and goes to tell them the news, which makes the children very happy, unlike Onur, who says that he cannot travel because of his work. She puts pressure on him all night long and says that her parents never allowed her to travel alone and that they always slept with her. Then he decides to leave work and go with them. And on the same day, he receives many calls from Melissa, but ignores them because Shabnam is sitting next to him. As for Rafik, he was released despite confessing to the crime, and it appears that Masood did this to follow him after his release and find out where he was going. Dedim sent exclusive news to Idana, which consisted of a photo of one of the club members, whose name is Bahar, with her coach. We learn that Bahar is married, and it is not in her best interest for anyone to see this photo, and we also learn that it was Dedim who introduced her to him, so she finds out about this news and gives Aydin a chance to delete the photo of Onur and Melissa, which he does. Bahar is afraid of her husband's reaction, but realizes that he treats her better than before and does not follow the news. Masood knows that Rafik is going to visit Shabnam at her house, so he decides to interrogate her officially this time, but she refuses. She feels the danger is growing, so she takes her children to escape. This is the first time they see her in this state, so they feel scared, and halfway there she stops and sits down on the side of the road to talk to the children and let them know that she adores them very much, so that they are afraid of nothing in life. They sat on the beach for a while and then went home. When they returned home, she called Masood to set a date to meet. Since the press will be talking about them, she decides to go to Masood's house the next morning. Onur is in his company, and Melissa comes to him, who decides to meet him, realizing that he is running away from her. She confesses her feelings and tells him that she can't live without him, but he tries to push her away, and Melissa agrees to stay away from him on the condition that he visit her one last time and go on a trip with her. The next day, Shabnam prepares for Masood's visit and Onur prepares for a visit to Melissa's house, and she remembers their old memories where they were happy together. As for Shabnam, she comes to Masood, starts recording the interrogation, and suddenly Shabnam is very tired, but refuses to go to the hospital as she is afraid that Masood will see the knife wound on her leg. She asks Masood to bring her a glass of water and suddenly loses consciousness, so Masood decides to call an ambulance and notices a wound on her leg. The first part ends here. We will try to publish the second part as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. See you very soon.